All right. Hello and welcome everyone to our office hours webinar for today. We're so glad that you could be joining us. Our goal for the office hours webinar series is to highlight a specific feature or two within BrainHQ, and then we'll open the floor and answer any questions that you might have about those features. Now, today's topic is an introduction to BrainHQ's accessibility features. So let's go over the agenda for today. So Peter and I will walk you through some new accessibility features within BrainHQ, talk about some existing ones, and then address some common concerns that we received from BrainHQ users. After that, we'll pivot to taking questions from you all in the audience today. Now, if at any point you'd like to ask a question, you can click the Q&A button on the Zoom control panel and a new window should pop up. You can type in your questions there, and then we will do our best to answer as many of those questions as we can. Now, there are a lot more of you in the audience than there are me and Peter, so that means that we aren't going to be able to answer every question today, but you can always send any follow-up questions to support@brainhq.com. We also have a support site that you can visit. That address is support.brainhq.com, and that will have answers to a lot of common questions about BrainHQ. Now, one other thing that I wanted to note is that today's webinar is being recorded and it will get posted to our YouTube channel in the coming days. If you would like to be notified when that video goes live, you can head on over to youtube.com/BrainHQ and subscribe there in order to receive a notification when the replay is ready. All right, so a little bit about me. Hello, my name is Stephanie. Before working at Posit Science, I was a science communicator and docent at a science museum based here in San Francisco. In 2014, I started working for Posit Science as a customer delight specialist. I wear a lot more hats now than I did then when I first started nearly a decade ago now, but my work is still focused on how I can best support BrainHQ users. Now, joining me today is a newcomer to our webinar series, Dr. Peter Delahunt. Hi, Peter, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, happy to have you. So Peter is a senior engineer and scientist from our product development team here at Posit Science. So as a part of the product development team, he helps develop exercises for Posit Science programs like BrainHQ. His research focuses on how aging affects visual perception and reversing declines in visual performance. He earned his PhD in psychology from UC Santa Barbara and has been working with us since 2005, which is, fun fact, before Posit Science was even called Posit Science.
Right.
Do you remember what it was called back then?
Yeah, Neuroscience Solutions. Yeah.
Neuroscience Solutions. I wasn't sure if it was that or if it was Brain Plasticity Institute at that point.
Yeah, we had a separate research branch at one stage as well called the Brain Plasticity Institute. But yeah,
Got it.
Posit Science, I think probably about a year after I joined, we started calling Posit Science.
All right, awesome. Well, Peter, we're so glad that you could be joining us today. We're very, very excited to have you. And you've been doing a lot of work on the various accessibility features within BrainHQ. So you're going to be the perfect person to talk to.
Good.
All right, so what do we mean when we talk about accessibility features within BrainHQ or just in general on the web? So in simple terms, accessibility features for websites are design considerations and tools that make websites more usable. So these features aim to remove barriers and ensure that everybody, regardless of their abilities, can access and interact with websites more effectively. So in customer support, it's fairly common for users to reach out to us and ask us all kinds of questions that have to do with accessibility. Some examples would be, how am I supposed to move my mouse that fast in order to give an answer to that tricky question? Or I'm having trouble with this particular kind of exercise. Is there a way to prevent it from showing up in my schedule? Or is that even something that I should do? We've been answering these kinds of questions for as long as BrainHQ has been around, but we wanted to take the opportunity to talk about them with you all since some of these options may not be well known. Now, as a quick note before we jump in, although we are going to be going over some accessibility features today, I do want to let you all know that this isn't the final version of the program. Our goal is to have BrainHQ be fully compliant with WCAG 2.1, which is the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. Peter, can you give us some information about what WCAG is and what those guidelines are?
Yeah, they're guidelines put together by the World Wide Web Consortium, which are in charge of how browsers are compatible across different types of browsers and how people use them. So these are the well-accepted guidelines. For the last 6 months or so, we've been working towards getting fully compliant so that we can be certified as accessible, as an accessible website, a fully accessible website.
That's fantastic. And there are sort of like different, as I understand it, there are some different ratings within WCAG. Like there's AA websites, AAA websites, and non-compliant websites. Are we shooting for like a AA or a AAA certification there?
Currently, we're doing mostly AAA, but our initial goal was to get 2.1 AA. But very quickly, then we'll move on. So now, as part of the product team now is really focusing on always doing their best to be fully compliant with those, the highest level of those guidelines.
Great, that's awesome. And so if any of you in the audience today have questions or requests for accessibility features, feel free to let us know. You can let us know during the Q&A session, or you can send us an email, support@brainhq.com. Our product development team, including Peter, is always eager to receive feedback from users about how we can improve your experience with BrainHQ. All right, so speaking of experiencing BrainHQ, Peter, do you want to go ahead and take over the screen share and show, some features that you can demonstrate from the homepage of BrainHQ?
Okay, so this is when you get to BrainHQ and you're not logged in. I want to give you a little demonstration of some of the accessibility features. What I'm doing here, I'm just using keyboard only to navigate around this web page. So I'm tabbing. You see, skip to main content. It's tabbing through all the links and buttons on the web page, and I can also go backwards. These are all with tabbing and shift tabbing. All our web pages have a skip to main content. So if you hit enter on that, it takes you to the main body. So you skip the menu because it can be tiresome to have to always go through the menu every time you go to a page within BrainHQ. So now it's you can see on the little video, the BrainHQ video, the outline is on the start. I can play the video and I can stop the video all from the keyboard. I can adjust the volume by using the up and down arrow keys. And it'll go through all buttons and links and any form on the website. So, and here's some links. Many people use these tabbing keyboard shortcuts with a screen reader, and you can set up your screen reader to read out the headings and the content of the pages. So people with visual impairments can know what's on the page. So I'm going to go back up to the top and just show you how you would log in again, all through the keyboard. This is the login dialog. I can tab through the different parts. Let's say the set new password, or back to login. Then actually you can see that I have a password manager, which is also accessible. I can use the arrow key to go up and down that if there were more than one entry. But I'm going to now hit the login button and it'll take me to the logged in landing page, as we call it.
Yeah, fantastic. So I am actually going to go ahead and pick up where Peter is right now from the logged in landing page. So you should all be seeing that screen now. Peter, is that accurate?
Yes, that looks good.
All right, fantastic. So continuing on with the, navigating the website using the keyboard, I'm going to actually go ahead and show how to get to a specific exercise within BrainHQ using the keyboard. So once again, hitting tab to see the focused item there, which is skip to main content. I'll go ahead and hit tab a couple more times until I get to explore all exercises. Hit enter on that. Skip to main content again. And let's go to divided attention. So as we can see, the skipping to main content is actually quite a big help. So that way, that's just a few fewer times that you have to press the tab key on your keyboard. All right. So as many of you have probably experienced, there are quite a few exercises within BrainHQ that move pretty quick and have a timed response. So in these kinds of exercises, it's just as important to answer correctly as it is to answer within the time limit. Now, these kinds of exercises are known as CPTs, or continuous performance tasks. Peter, can you say a little bit about why continuous performance tasks were included in BrainHQ and sort of the significance of them?
Yes, CPT tasks are very important for improving your attention. These are, as Stephanie said, continuous performance tasks. You're looking, there's some sort of a time element where you have to respond quickly. You follow a rule and you press yes or go if you see the correct stimuli, but you have to suppress the urge to respond yes if it's a distractor. So this is really important for your attentional system and your prefrontal cortex, where you need to have accurate processing and ignore, suppress information that's irrelevant. And these type of tasks are good for training you for, like, in the real world, we're doing this all the time, but say we're driving down a road, you want to pay attention to what's important and ignore all distracting information.
Yeah, because with attention, it's just as important to be able to notice things as it is to be able to identify what's a distractor and sort of put that away. That's and right. Not dedicate as much brain power to it.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I specifically wanted to talk about divided attention during the demo today because it is one of these CPTs, or continuous performance tasks. So here, let me go ahead and switch over to the exercise proper. So in this exercise, for those of you who need a refresher, there's going to be some sort of criteria on the screen, and then there are going to be shapes on either side. And if the shapes match the criteria, then you're going to answer yes. If they don't match the criteria, then you're going to answer no. Now, there is a timed component to this. So we'll see there's a little timer at the center bottom of the screen. And if I don't answer, if I don't provide an input, I will automatically be marked wrong. Now, I can use the left key to answer yes, or the right key to answer no, rather than having to move my mouse back and forth across the screen. So let's say same color, not the same color. Same color, it is the same color. And so this is a feature that has been included in all of our CPT exercises, or all of our CPTs rather, from the get-go, but some people aren't aware that that is a feature. And so we wanted to make sure that we noted that today. Now, the other thing that I wanted to talk about, speaking of keyboard inputs, is that it's not just the continuous performance tasks that have keyboard inputs now. All of the exercises in BrainHQ are actually accessible via keyboard. So let me go ahead and go back to the dashboard here. And I am going to go to Target Tracker, just as an example here. So let's load up the first level of Target Tracker. So if you are interested in figuring out what the keyboard controls are for each exercise, in the bottom, I'll hit resume exercise. So in the bottom right corner of the exercise, there are a couple of icons down here. So the one that you're going to want to select is going to be the eye icon for information. And then if you want to see keyboard shortcuts, you can click here, and then you'll see to make select a specific orb that's going to be moving around. You can use the left and right arrow keys, and then to effectively click on it or select it as your answer, you would press the down arrow key. So let's go ahead and start this exercise and see what that looks like here. So we have two orbs that start moving around. Other distractors will appear. When the orbs stop moving, we can now use the left and right arrow keys, and it'll just kind of go through all of the different targets. So that was a target that I believe was one of our original ones. So I'll hit the down arrow. Got the little boop to let me know that it was right. And then I think this one was the other one. Nope, but that's okay. Anyway, so all of the exercises, like I said, now have these keyboard controls. So please feel free to use them at your leisure, give us feedback on them. There are also quite a few things that we've done to make BrainHQ easier to view. And there have been a lot of considerations made behind the scenes, both when organizing the website and developing exercises that takes this into account. Peter, can you talk to us a little bit more about some of the design considerations made for the website and maybe some of the changes that we've made? And I'll go ahead and switch over to the
Okay.
presentation window too.
Well, the first thing we did was reorganize a lot of the HTML, the actual code part for headings and paragraphs and buttons so that the screen reader can read them out. So people with visual impairments or low vision can navigate and hear where they are and navigate the website as well as a person with full vision. We're working with a consultant with who's helping us revise our web content. So we're doing a lot of revisions to contrast or text contrast. There's actually a minimum contrast required to fulfill the requirements. And as Stephanie's showing here on the top left, that light blue background can be difficult for some people to read the text against. So on the bottom right, then it's changed to a darker background with a higher contrast, and it's easier to read. And the same with images. That the image on the left, you can see some of that text limited U of V in the middle of the image is difficult to read. It's white against a light gray background. So that has been revised to a darker background, which complies with the contrast requirements for WCAG.
Yeah, absolutely. So these are all changes that we're continuing to make over time. So keep on the lookout for that. Some of your graphics may be easier to read going forward. Now, Peter, this also applies to exercises within BrainHQ. For example, we get a lot of questions from people who have color blindness and will often write into us about Hawkeye because it's one of the early exercises that people encounter.
Right.
So we got a couple slides talking about that.
Okay, color blindness. So on the top here, under normal color vision, you can see the full spectrum from a person with standard human color vision. As you probably know, we have 3 cone types, and we process color information in 2 channels: red, green, and blue-yellow. Now, most people with color blindness have what's called red-green color blindness. They're missing one of the cones, and they cannot process red-green colors. But they can see blue-yellow pretty well. By the way, this is the sort of standard mammalian vision. So cats and dogs have this kind of blue-yellow color vision as well. Many people think that dogs are colorblind, but they do see blues and yellows. The red-green, it's by far the most common type, and it affects mainly males. About 2.5% of males and 0.03% of females have it. And the reason being that the gene mutation is on the X chromosome, and men have an XY, just one X chromosome, whereas women, if they do have one with the gene mutation, they have a second X, which is most likely not to have it. So most women have normal color vision.
All right. And so knowing now what we know about color blindness, let's talk about some of the changes that we've made to the exercises.
These 2 mixed signals and divided attention used to make red-green comparisons. So we've decided to take that comparison out of both of these exercises. And so they can be done a lot more easily with people with red-green color blindness.
Yep. And then Hawkeye, like I said, is a big one that we often get questions about. You want to speak to that?
Yeah, this is more difficult. I should point out that our visual stimuli that we use in the actual exercises, we can't easily change because we have many years of data, performance data based on these sets of stimuli. And also, if we make a change, it'll affect people's percentiles and so on. So we're very cautious about making changes to the actual exercise stimuli. But here's an example of a scene from Hawkeye. On the left side, you'll see what a color normal person can see. On the bottom of that image, you'll see the 2 birds. The bird with the red head is the target, and the gray bird is the distractor. And for a person with normal color vision, that red head is something they'll focus on. It really popped out. For a person who is red-green colorblind, on the right side, you'll see that the differences are much less apparent. And on the bottom, you can see that there's no indication of a color difference. So really, what that person would have to do is concentrate on shape differences. So you can see the tails are quite different. So you'd be looking for a pointy tail amongst kind of square tails, and there's darker wings. So all the Hawkeye stimuli can be done, but it is more difficult for a person at least some of the stimuli sets are more difficult for a person with red-green color blindness. But Stephanie, as you will point out, they're adaptive. So, and they're also still very useful for visual training. But the frustrating thing a little bit is that you may not perform as well as a color normal person. It may be a little bit more challenging for you.
Yeah. So oftentimes when people come to us and they say, hey, I'm colorblind, I'm struggling with Hawkeye in particular, or, it doesn't even necessarily apply to visual exercises. If somebody is hard of hearing in certain areas, some of the auditory exercises can be troublesome. We generally like to say, hey, it's okay. You're going to score lower than, somebody that doesn't necessarily have that condition or that deficit. But it's still worth doing the training because some of that training is going to be better than no training at all in that area. And like Peter was also saying with Hawkeye, even though it's primarily a visual processing exercise, color is not the only identifier here. You can look at the shape of the wings and the tail and other features of the bird as well. And that kind of carries across other exercises too. It will be harder, but exercises are adaptive. So it'll slow down or ease up on you in a way that can meet you where you're at, essentially. All right. So I want to go ahead and talk about some of our sound features within BrainHQ. We've talked about visual features, but we also often get questions about how to train without sound in BrainHQ. Turning off auditory exercises can be good for a number of reasons. Maybe you are in a noisy environment and it would be difficult to hear the exercises, or maybe you're training in a public place and don't want the app sounds to disturb others. Maybe you're hard of hearing. Any of these reasons are absolutely valid. So one of the questions that we often get, like Peter and I were just talking about, is it better to turn off auditory exercises versus sticking with them and sticking them out and training with them, even if you don't necessarily score well? Again, those exercises, including the sound exercises, are adaptive. So they will meet you sort of where you're at. If you're struggling with one, also feel free to shoot us an email. Sometimes people will not have a lot of issues with exercises like sound sweeps or fine tuning, but then when they get to more complex versions of auditory exercises like in the know, then it can sort of become troublesome. So we are always happy to give tips and advice for training with those kinds of exercises. Now, another thing that we often get comments about is that some of the exercises like memory grid use synthesized speech instead of natural speech, which can be somewhat harder to understand. But that's also kind of the point of the exercise and the design behind the exercise. Peter, I know you're primarily a visual scientist, but can you speak maybe to this sort of auditory concept?
Right. It's a processed speech. So it's using real speech, but it's a process so that some of the speech sounds are stretched and amplified. And the goal is to get the cells in your auditory cortex to respond more with greater fidelity to those sounds. So better responses, cleaner responses. Because if you can process speech with a greater accuracy, then it's encoded more accurately and that improves your memory.
Yeah. So again, tying it back to attention and brain speed, being able to, like Peter just said, if you can't take in the information accurately, then you're gonna have a harder time recalling that information later. One thing that we also get questions about is, hey, if you have a deficit or some sort of condition, or you just want to turn off an exercise for whatever reason, how can you actually go about doing that? So for example, if we wanted to turn off auditory exercises from, or prevent auditory exercises from appearing in the personal trainer focus, how do we do that? So I'm going to show you here. So the personal trainer is a feature of BrainHQ that will automatically queue up exercises for you each time you go to train. But up here, we have an option called a focus, and focuses are groupings of exercises that are designed to work on a specific skill. So we have our standard focuses, which are just like the optimized schedules. We also have specialized focuses, which work on that specific skill. And then we also have the option for a custom focus, which I'm actually going to go ahead and go to. So for those of you that haven't fiddled with a custom focus before, let me introduce you to it. So over here on the left, you'll have the option to name your custom focus. And then on the right, there's going to be many icons and all of the exercises lined up. And this is going to be the order in which the personal trainer will schedule those exercises, I believe. Now, we also have a handy little toggle here. So if you push this button, you'll see that some of the exercises get moved to the bottom and get grayed out, and they aren't numbered anymore, indicating that the personal trainer will not call up those exercises for you to train with. And so we have this toggle, avoid exercises that require headphones. So that's shorthand for exercises that where the audio stimuli is the focus. So if you want to work on exercises where you can turn off the sound and train with it effectively without sound, then that would be the quickest way to do that. And you can rename it. So I would put probably no audio. And then in order to save that focus and load it into the trainer, you would click this button up here, which is going to go ahead and save it. It's not showing up here because this is, oh, there it is. Yeah. So here we go. We got Hawkeye, target tracker, visual sweeps, but no sound sweeps, no fine tuning, nothing like that. Now, what if you wanted to create a custom focus where you didn't have any of the continuous performance tasks? That's another question that we sometimes get. How can I, set up the personal trainer so that way I don't have any of those timed exercises? Well, similar thing. So you can go to create a new focus and then select the different exercises that you want to omit from the personal trainer. I actually have a list of them that I will put up on the screen in just a second here. So I've made a list. The auditory exercises that get toggled off when you push the avoid exercises that require headphones button are in this first column. The continuous performance tasks, again, that you would have to put in a custom focus are going to be here. And then the last thing that I want to mention is that we also, in those specialized focuses that I mentioned earlier, the ones that focus on a specific sort of skill, we also have we have focuses for auditory processing and visual processing. So if you know it's a day, for example, that you're going to be outside, out and about, maybe you want to switch up your focus to focus on visual processing. So that way you don't have to worry about the audio. Or, if there's a day where you say to yourself, hey, I really do want to work on the auditory exercises, you can switch the focus over to the auditory processing focus. All right, so I think that's going to wrap it for the presentation part. But Peter, is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you want to mention before we head over to Q&A?
That we're still constantly working on this. So we're very motivated now as a product development team. And so if any feedback from people using our products, we would appreciate that. We're interested to know how people are using it. And I think you might have said this at the beginning, but the accessibility features benefit everybody. There's a lot of people who don't particularly like using a mouse and just like to navigate with keyboards. And so it's benefiting all of our users, hopefully, these changes.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't need to have problems with your vision for, high contrast text to make it easier to read, for example. Accessibility is required for some, but honestly, it is also very useful for everybody at the end of the day. All right, so let's head over to Q&A here. So we have a couple of questions. Oh, an anonymous attendee had written in, how do you use the website without using your mouse? So the way that Peter and I were navigating the website was by using the tab key on our keyboard. So that's going to be on the left side of your keyboard above the caps lock key. So tab will progress you forward. And then if you need to go backwards, you'll want to use hold down shift and then hit tab at the same time. And then that should get you around the website. All right.
And then it's
So
definitely using a return or an enter key to activate that button as well.
yes. Yeah, sorry. Thank you for mentioning that. That's a very big part of that equation. All right. So let's see here. Okay. So there are a couple of folks who um, are writing into us about how to use BrainHQ with specific medical conditions. For example, advanced glaucoma or achromative. I'm sorry, I cannot say that word. I apologize, but there have been several people that have written in about various conditions. Even though Peter is a PhD, he's not a medical doctor and can't like give out medical advice. But would you be, are you able to give advice to people, like for example, with advanced glaucoma, on sort of how to guide their training in BrainHQ?
Well, there are some visual impairments that where a person won't be able to do some of the tasks. I think glaucoma generally it's a buildup of pressure which can affect the retina. So it's a general loss of vision across the visual field. My recommendation, and there's actually I just mentioned there's a lot of people with age-related macular degeneration where they can't see very well in the center of vision. My advice is to check out the tutorials for each of the exercises, and if you can do the basic tutorial, it will benefit you. Even though you have vision problems in your eye, we're really targeting the visual cortex. We want to improve responses and encoding in the visual cortex. So if you can do the basic task, do the tutorial, you should be able to do the exercise should adapt to your ability.
Yeah.
And make improvements.
Yeah. And again, the idea that some brain training is still going to be better than none. Doing this kind of training, even if you are in some of the lower levels and need to repeat those, that's okay because you're able to still train your brain in a way that it normally isn't trained. So you're driving that plasticity.
Right.
So definitely still worth trying out the exercises if you have any of those concerns or issues. Nancy has a question. I use my tablet for BrainHQ. Is this relevant at all to me? That is a really, really good question. I don't think we have mobile support for the web version of BrainHQ. Do we have any features like that?
Well, we're focusing on the web content. So if the person is using the tablet to get to the website, you should see all the accessibility features, especially if you're using the tablet with a keyboard. But the mobile apps that you download from the app stores, they have their own accessibility regulations, and we have yet to focus on that on those products, but we will in the near future.
Yeah, I know that's always sort of a goal is getting the website and the mobile apps to sort of sync up and be what's the word? Basically to have the appearance to share appearances so that way it's easier for everybody to navigate as well. And usually the updates will come to the site first and then the mobile apps will follow that.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So let's see. Jennifer asked, you mentioned toggling to eliminate a specific activity from the list in the personal trainer. How do we toggle? Yeah, so I'm happy to go over that again. Let me go ahead and switch over to the demo window here. So for the personal trainer, I would go up here to the focus option up in the top left, click on that, and then I would go to create a new focus or an existing focus if I wanted to edit it. So if I wanted to turn an exercise off, all I would have to do is click on the X, and then that exercise gets removed from the personal trainer. So when I was talking about toggling exercises on and off, this is essentially what I was referring to. So you can say you don't want to train with face facts, you click the X next to face facts, and then you see it at the bottom, and it's not numbered, so it's not going to show up in the personal trainer. So thank you for the opportunity to clarify that, Jennifer. Appreciate it. This is a good one, and not an uncommon question either that we get in support. Kate is asking, is it more important to use headphones with the auditory exercises? Can you talk about the benefits, please? Peter, do you want to take a crack at that one?
Well, the reason that it's useful to use headphones is because you're isolating all other extraneous sounds. So it's similar to being in a very quiet room with speakers. But in a noisier environment, headphones are preferred.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
getting best possible sound without any distracting noise into your auditory system.
Yeah, in a funny way, it feels like training without headphones and maybe not a silent room is an extra level of training that maybe you don't want to put on yourself right away.
Right.
So Kate, thank you for the question. Great question. All right, let's see. Oh, Rebecca had a question. I believe that it related to the demo of divided attention that I was doing. Rebecca wrote in and said, I don't understand why some exercises you get stars, but in the timed ones you don't. So in the timed exercises, you do get stars. You just don't start earning stars until you get at least one of the trials or turns correct. So if I were to go back to divided attention, as long as I get one question correct, I'm going to be guaranteed to earn at least 1 star on that exercise. So the beginning of that demo, I had hands off the keyboard, was not giving answers. So that's why it didn't look like I was getting stars. All right. So, here's an interesting one, and we do get feedback about this. So Peter, the exercise in the no, a lot of the conversations include snarky or gossipy content. I don't want to fill my brain with more negativity. Can the content be adjusted to be kinder? Have you heard this? I know you're, again, visual scientist more than the auditory, but have you heard this before?
Unfortunately, yes, I've heard that a few times over the last
Yeah.
few years, and we do have plans to change that. We may have to, as I said before, it's hard to change an exercise once it's started because you're gathering data all the time about performance. So in some cases, we just replace it with a brand new exercise. So we have to be very careful about how we do that. But it is one of our goals is to use different sets of speech to make it less gossipy. That is our longer term goal.
Yeah, absolutely. And then also along with many of the other people skills exercises, also being able to diversify the content that is spoken about in those conversations is also a goal of ours, as I understand it too.
Right.
All right. So, Martha had a question. We were talking about using the using an iPad with a keyboard earlier. Can you clarify, can you use a keyboard with an iPad either on the app or on the website?
Should be able to do it on the website, not on the app.
Yeah.
At least the accessibility features we're working on are web based. So yes, should work with a keyboard and web access on a tablet.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you are at brainhq.com on your iPad, you should be able to use the keyboard. But if you are using the BrainHQ app downloaded from the App Store, those features are not quite there yet. All right, let's see. All right, Marlene has a question. Is there a way to slow down the timer? I'm assuming that they're referring to the CPTs, if using it with somebody who has early dementia and wants to use it. Yeah, absolutely. So Marlene, what we generally recommend to people who come to us, dementia or not, if an exercise is moving too fast, we say to get a bunch of questions wrong. So that sounds kind of counterintuitive at first because like it's a training program, you want to be answering things right, but the program won't know to slow down until you get questions wrong first. So all of the exercises, like we mentioned, are adaptive, and there is sort of generalizing here, kind of an 80-20 split. So the program wants you to be getting roughly 80% of the questions correct and 20% of the questions wrong. If it sees that you're getting more than what it thinks should be incorrect, then it's going to slow down. So that way you will have more time to process the information. So I would say, yeah, if somebody that you know is struggling with the time to exercises, it's absolutely okay to get a ton of questions wrong, especially like with divided attention, where sometimes you have like 80, 90, 100 turns. Get 20 of them wrong right off the bat. No worries. And that timer should definitely slow down for you. Real quick one. Bobby asked, can you use BrainHQ on an iPhone or iPad? Yes, that is a thing you can do. So we do have iPad and iPhone apps available for download in the App Store. If you have a subscription on the web version of BrainHQ, then that subscription will carry over to the app version of BrainHQ as well. So you can take your training with you wherever you want to go. Okay, let's see. An anonymous attendee wrote in asking about using the number keys on OpticFlow. So that was actually one that I demoed 2 months ago now. We did a webinar on challenging exercises, and one of the things that I talked about were using the keys on OpticFlow. So here I can show that briefly. We go to OpticFlow. So keyboard shortcuts. The screen is kind of broken up into 4 different sections that the target can appear in. And so if you see your target in the leftmost portion of the screen, you can use the number 1 key on your keyboard to select that section. 2 is the next lane over, 3 is the lane that you're in, and then pushing number 4 on your keyboard is going to be for the side of the highway. So for example, let's just do a trial or two. All right, so I see it over in the first section, so we'll hit the number 1 on my keyboard. I'm seeing that target over in the 4th section, so I'll hit the number 4 on my keyboard. So that's also a great thing to do if you ever have the experience of like training with OpticFlow and you find that when you click, your answers aren't actually being received by the exercise. What we are sometimes finding is that people will be clicking like up in the sky where that isn't actually a place to give an input. And so people, even though they would be getting the questions right, the answers aren't getting picked up properly. So using the number keys for OpticFlow is honestly probably preferred at this point, I think, for most people. Oh, Laura has a question, and Peter, I'll toss it to you, but Laura asks, do the exercises help you in general or only specifically with that task? Can you maybe talk about the science behind generalizing the training?
I mean, that's a really good question because people get better at the tasks they do. There's no doubt about that, but is it worth it? Does it generalize? And the great thing about Posit Science is that we have over 100 research papers published, maybe 150 at this stage, showing that this training has real world benefits, including better driving, better less rates of falling, lots of different types of research projects show that these benefits, that the task improvements generalize to the real world.
Yeah, so there is a lot of science that looked at the efficacy and show that it does translate to real world situations. And that can be from, noticing things more quickly and accurately when you're driving, or to remembering names and faces when you meet somebody at a party, to remembering where you put your keys down. So right. Any of those things, it is helpful in different aspects for different people, for sure. All right. Oh, Robert has a question that, Peter, I'm going to go ahead and toss to you as well. Has the red-green issue been dealt with on all of the exercises, not just Hawkeye, but, for example, Eye for Detail or Scene Crasher? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, it's the same. It applies to these exercises too, that there's enough shape information to do the task, but it will be a little bit more difficult for some of the stimuli for red people with red-green color blindness. When we developed these stimulus sets quite a few years ago, it wasn't really on the top of our agenda to look at red-green color blindness. It's only in more recent years that we focused on this. If we were to do it again, we might make some changes, but we will look into this and make revisions. But I've said this a couple of times now, but we're very reluctant to make changes to exercises because they've been around for a while and there's a lot of data, and it'll change people's percentiles and so on. So, but we will look into that. We're going to do a broader sort of color review of our exercises in the not too distant future.
Yeah, for sure. All right, thank you for that. Jerry has a question relating back to the science question that you answered. Do you publish your test results which prove the benefits of BrainHQ training? And if so, how does one access these results? So great question. Love that question. So our website actually has a whole section down here dedicated to the science. So if we navigate there, we have resources about why BrainHQ is effective, the benefits of BrainHQ, and then we also have links to hundreds of published studies. So you can see that they are grouped by different various populations here. But all of the journal links are going to be available there on our website. So feel free to peruse that. And if you have questions about any of those studies, shoot us an email. Even if the researcher isn't necessarily working for Posit Science, we probably still collaborate with them and can forward those questions to them. Oh, Joanne has a question. I have a hearing issue and often do poorly on auditory exercises. How is my memory progress affected by skipping some of these exercises? I usually just push through, but I often have to repeat the exercise. What are your thoughts? Peter, you want to take a crack at that one?
Even though we've mentioned before that these exercises are adaptive, so if you can do them at all, we'd recommend that you do them so that you're getting a broad brain training effect from the BrainHQ. So I would stick at it if at all possible. If it's impossible, then maybe you want to take it off that list that Stephanie showed when you create a focus. But if you can do the tutorial and the first levels, I would stick at it as much as possible.
Yeah, what I would also, to add on to that, recommend is if you don't train with an exercise for a long time, but do other training, I would say try circling back to that exercise after a while too. What you may find is that your skills have been bolstered in other areas by other exercises. And so maybe the troubles that you were running into with that particular exercise have sort of been improved upon through other exercises as well.
Yeah, good point.
So definitely worth circling back to for sure. All right. Jane has a question. I have problems with word retrieval. What exercises would be good for me? So word finding, I think, is probably the term that Jane is referring to. Do you have recommendations for that?
Well, the auditory exercises start off at a very basic sound level, like the sweeps, clean up the encoding of very basic sounds of speech. And then they progress to the exercises where you do phoneme comparisons and then all the way up to in the know. But having a better an auditory cortex that processes information more cleanly helps with retrieval. So when you train on BrainHQ with the auditory exercises, you're processing information much more accurately and it's stored more accurately, and it should help with retrieval. We've shown that these exercises do improve memory.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, just to sort of summarize that, the brain speed and attention exercises, also a good most of the exercises in BrainHQ have something to do with working memory, but the more accurately you are able to the more accurately you're able to bring in that information, the more accurately you're going to be able to recall that information later. Is a sort of short version of that. Yeah. So let's see. Oh, here's a good question. Should I train with BrainHQ with my hearing aids in? Peter, you want to take a crack at that?
The answer is yes. Yeah, you want to amplify the sounds that maybe that you can no longer hear as well, so that your auditory cortex, the cells that respond to those frequencies, are trained. So yes, we recommend
Yeah.
using hearing aids.
Yeah, absolutely. So the thing that we kind of also tell people is, if you wear your hearing aids day to day, then wear your hearing aids when you do training with BrainHQ. It's sort of training your brain to work with the hearing aids while you're doing that training. All right, let's see. I have I have a comment followed by a question that are both kind of about the diversity in some of our exercises, and the dichotomy between those two I find interesting and a little humorous. Janet says, you have plenty of diversification in face facts and in the no changes needed. They are great as is. But then Rory immediately after said, in the know often uses people's names that are very uncommon and many are new to me, which is confusing. Is that the intent of the exercise, and should that be changed to more common names? Yeah, so Rory, that's a great question that we do get oftentimes, because there are names that not everybody is exposed to throughout their life experiences, and different kinds of names and jobs and many different things that come up in the know. And so although it wasn't necessarily, I don't think, an original design intention of that exercise to come across as confusing, the unfamiliarity of those items that you're listening for should kind of be approached as an opportunity to expose yourself to more information. Novelty is really, really good for our brains, our brains crave novelty. And so being able to take in that new information, even if it, kind of increases your cognitive load for a little bit while you're training with that exercise, I think is going to be a net gain for you. Peter, what would you say to that?
Yeah, I agree. Novelty is important. Our product is used all around the world as well. So we try to diversify a little bit. But we do, there's people speak English in different parts with different names. So we're trying to use some sort of diversity so that it's accessible to everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's see. I think we have time for maybe one more question, so I'm trying to very quickly skim as many questions as I can and see if there's one that maybe is a repeat question for a lot of people. Okay. We've had a couple of people write in asking if there are ways to change the background color in exercises. So my understanding is no, there's not really a way to do that. But Peter, can you maybe speak to why that's not a feature that we have built into particularly the visual exercises?
So they say background, which isn't part of any sort of visual stimuli or part of the task. It's just the background.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really a design thing. If we had enough requests for it, I think it's something we could think about that you could modify or customize the look and feel of BrainHQ. But really, it's a design question. We're trying to make it look attractive and engaging.
Yeah.
But maybe that's something we'll think about in the future if we get enough requests.
Yeah, absolutely. And there have been some changes to some of the exercise backgrounds. Like so what Peter I think is alluding to is like if we were to go back to divided attention, The background of this exercise is green, different variations of green with the divided attention logo sort of scattered throughout. Until somewhat recently, I think if we made this change a year, maybe 2 years ago, the background for a lot of these exercises was just stark white. And sometimes that was
Right.
difficult for contrast for some people too. So adding the color, it can be a little challenging for some people, but is also more often than not, I think, helpful for other people as well. So that was definitely another consideration. Okay, so I think let's go ahead and start wrapping up now. I wanted to thank you all again so much for attending and for all of your wonderful questions. There were a ton of questions that we didn't have an opportunity to answer, and for that, I'm sorry. Please do email us, our support at BrainHQ. We're happy to take those questions, and if you have any feedback for other features that you would like to see within BrainHQ that would make it easier to access, then we're happy to forward that to Peter and other members of the product development team. Peter, do you have any last words that you want to share with our audience today?
Thanks. It's very interesting hearing the feedback from our users, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thanks, everyone, for your time. Once again, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. This video will be up on YouTube sometime next week. And I think that's it. Happy brain training, everybody.